Okay, so we've come to day 2 of this week, finishing up Acts chapter 3. This is a little longer, 3 verses today in order to get through the rest of the chapter this week. So go ahead and see if you can pronounce it. Here's my shot. Kai epite piste tu onomatos autou, tuton, hon theorete, kai oidete, estereosen, to onoma autou, kai he pistis e diautou edoken auto, tain holoclerion tautain epenanti ponton humon. Verse 17. Kai nun adelphoi oida hoti kata agnoion eproxite. Hosper kai hoi archontes humon. Verse 18. Hodetheos ha pro katengelen diastomatos panton, ton propheton pathain ton Christon autou eplerosen hutos. Okay. Whew. See if you can pronounce it now. Can translate it now. And here's my shot. And on the basis of faith of the name of him, on the basis of faith in, we would say, this is called we could debate it. The name isn't believing, so this is an objective genitive. The name is serving as the object of faith. On the basis of faith directed toward the name, believing in the name, I believe the name. This is acting like an object of faith. On the basis of faith in the name, you might say. On the basis of faith in his name, even though it's literally on the basis of the faith of his name, this man, whom, relative pronoun, and this two-tone is a demonstrative pronoun, this man whom you are beholding, and you know. Now this is difficult to translate, but I think he's saying, the name of him strengthened this man. So I'm taking, and this is back when I was doing the overview for this week, I did a spot check of some different translations, and I think this is the way most of them go. So we're going to take to onoma autou as the subject of the verb. The name of him, estereosen, strengthened tuton, this man whom you are seeing and know. Tuton is accusative. That means it's the object of the verb. He strengthened this man. And so to onoma autou seems to be what did the strengthening. His name strengthened this man whom you are seeing beheld. So it's a little awkward sentence, probably not one of Luke's best sentences. And on the basis of faith in his name, the name of him has strengthened this man whom you are seeing and beheld. And the faith that is through him, you notice that article, noun, article, adjective, this is a prepositional phrase, through him. We call this the attributive use of a prepositional phrase. Because what faith are we talking about here? We're talking about the through him faith. Faith through him. We probably just ignore this other article, but this article is tacking through him onto faith. So we call this the attributive use of a prepositional phrase. The faith that is through him gave to him the wholeness, this wholeness before all y'all. Verse 17. And now, brothers, I know that according to ignorance you did it, just as also the rulers of y'all. By the way, this is a generous doff to the rulers of Jerusalem, saying that the rulers of Jerusalem crucified Jesus out of ignorance. That's awfully nice, isn't it? Because I tend to think they're dirty, rotten scoundrels who have hardened hearts and who need to fry. But this is a generous statement on Luke's Peter, that your rulers did it out of ignorance. Verse 18. And God, the things that he foretold through the mouth of all the prophets, namely to suffer the Christ of him, he fulfilled thus. So we'll put it in our Greek computer, and it comes out. But God has thus fulfilled the things that he foretold through the mouth of all the prophets, namely that his Christ would suffer. You just can't do it straightforward into English. You're going to have to play with it a little bit, even in a formal equivalence translation. Notice he says through the mouth of all the prophets. It doesn't say through the mouths of all the prophets. It seems to me this is saying the body of the prophets as a whole. That's interesting. Matthew does something like this in chapter 2, where he says, this happened that it might fulfill that which was spoken through the prophets. He will be called a Nazarene. Well, which prophet said that? You can't, in fact, it's hard to find a quote. I mean, there's Judges, he will be called a Nazarite. There's Isaiah 11, a branch will come forth, a Nazar. Anyway, so this kind of it's a collective view of the prophets as a whole. Or maybe I'm just overreading it. Okay, we've already kind of given you the translation, but let's go into more detail. And on the basis of faith in the name of him, the faith of the name of him, objective genitive, this man whom you see and you know, the name of him strengthened, and the faith through him gave to him the wholeness, this wholeness, before all of you. Okay, any questions? Oh, well, send them to me. Email them to me. Put them on YouTube. Put it on Patreon. Okay, the rest of the verse. And now, brothers and sisters, I know that according to ignorance you did it. Awfully nice. Reminds me a little bit of Acts 17, where Paul tells the Athenians, in times of ignorance God winked at, but now commands everyone to repent. So the time of ignorance is now over. This does remind us a little bit of Hebrews. You know, I don't want to, may I not become convinced that Luke wrote Hebrews, but Hebrews does consider, I think, Hebrews considers all sins committed prior to Christ as sins committed in ignorance. Interesting, in Hebrews chapter 9. Okay, just as also the rulers of you, I already mentioned how generous I think that is, and God has thus fulfilled the things that he foretold through the mouth of all the prophets, namely the Christ of him to suffer. Okay, so let's do the parsings. So I went ahead and put this up here. This is a dative. It doesn't look like a dative, but it is. That iota is the dative. This iota here is the equivalent of this iota subscript hanging for dear life on the eta. But by means of faith, on the basis of faith, it's dative. It's feminine because etas are feminine clues. Article never lies. Singular. Both of these are singular from pistis, which is a third declension weirdo. There are third declension nouns, and then there are third declension feminine nouns, like the iota stems. They do a funny, they're declined funny. Okay, this is aorist. A nu with an epsilon in front of it is often a movable nu. Throw it away. Epsilon is a very common third person singular, past tense, active indicative ending. So I, from just the sigma epsilon, I knew it was aorist active indicative third singular. Interesting. Just those three letters, or actually just these two letters, tell me everything here. And then that's the augment on the front, so the stereo O is the word to strengthen. Okay, edechen is the third principal part of didomi. Remember, me verbs have three weird things. 2.5. The half is sometimes in the aorist, they do a kappa. Didomi, do, so, edoka, didoka. Okay, this is the aorist. There's the augment on the front. And do, it's donating to you a aorist. Okay, eproxite. So this C is the key to a hidden sigma. So I have a hidden sigma alpha, that tells me it's aorist. Te is an active indicative ending. Well, te is an active second person plural ending. Indicative, the alpha entails indicative. Augment also only happens in the indicative. From proso, this word loses those sigmas are false teeth. There's a palatal hiding in there that when we get into the future and the aorist, the palatal comes out. Okay. This is a liquid verb. Liquid verbs don't do sigmas. So there, that epsilon nu is the same as this epsilon nu, is the same as this epsilon nu. All of them tell you that it's third singular. All of them tell you that it's a past tense. In each case, it's aorist, and all of these tell you it's active indicative. This is a liquid verb. The double lambda liquid verbs lose one of the lambdas in the other tenses. That was a hint. The alpha here has augmented. So that's an augment. And then the aorist of liquid verbs does internal lengthening. So this epsilon lengthens to an epsilon iota. It's messy, but it's aorist active indicative third singular from pro Katangelo. Okay, pathein is aorist because I've memorized it. It's the irregular aorist of Pasco, the Paschal lamb, the Passover. These words are related, I believe. I've just memorized that as aorist. Ain is an active infinitive. Okay, do we have anything left? No, we don't. And so we're done for the day. Send me your questions at ken.shank@inbus.edu. Talk to you later.